Okay, well, good news everyone, and spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, Labour have only gone and won a bloody election, haven't they? The Conservative Party has completely driven itself into the ground, leading to a historic result for Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and Reform UK. Let's have a quick catch-up about what it means and what's going to happen now. If you're unfamiliar with the scores on the doors, on screen now is a total number of seats held by each party. But what's probably a lot more interesting is the next graphic, the change in seats. From here you can see the big winners, Labour and the Lib Dems, and the big smelly idiot losers, namely the Conservatives and SNP. Obviously this was a complete shitshow for the Conservatives, and it couldn't have happened to a bigger bunch of smug, self-serving, corruption-enabling cunts. Not only did they lose 244 seats, but they also saw 12 of their cabinet ministers lose their seats as well. Liz Truss, Steve Baker, Penny Mordaunt, Grant Shapps, Gillian Keegan, Jacob Rees-Mogg, David Davies, Mark Harper all got fucked the fuck off. Liz didn't even make a speech, choosing instead to actually just run away. It was fantastic. Wales also did us proud by not electing a single Conservative MP throughout the entire country. Schadenfreude itself would need a word to describe how good it felt to watch these people suffer. Upon accepting the result of the election, Rishi Sunak also noted that he would be stepping down as the leader of the Conservative Party. The question that the Conservatives need to ask now is how they plan to move forward. Notable members that hung on to their seats include Suella Braverman, Jeremy Hunt, Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly, and Robert Jenrick. Whichever way you cut it, it's looking like a choice between horribly racist, horribly thick, or horribly racist and thick. The real takeaway for the Conservatives here should be that the massive pull towards the centre was because, and bear with me here, people tend to want a more centrist political party. They want bins emptied, hospitals open, and their kids to be taught. They want taxes to be fair and low, but not so low as to see hospitals, schools and transport routes shut down. Now let's look at the result from Labour's perspective. They won, obviously, and they won big, but it wasn't without some difficulties. They dropped a couple of people that Keir was planning to put in cabinet positions, which is almost entirely down to the party's position on Gaza. Despite winning 411 seats, they actually only took home just 10% more votes than the Conservatives. So what the fuck's that about then? Well, this is more of a statement about left-wing infighting and our first-past-the-post system than it is any great disservice to the Conservatives. The left-wing vote was split fairly broadly between Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens, presumably in protest to how centrist the Labour manifesto was. Now, when it comes to the Conservatives, they tend to be a bit more binary in how they vote. They typically would either vote Tory or not vote at all, and this low seat share probably has a fair bit to do with the fact that the habitual Tory voters chose to stay at home in protest to the direction that their party's gone in. Alongside that, you also have voters that were outright swept away by Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Despite only winning 5 seats in total, they took a gigantic 14% of the total vote share. That vote share more than likely was straight out of the Tories' pockets and would have cost them dearly. By Friday afternoon, Rishi had handed in his 5-minute notice to Charles hired Keir, and the UK suddenly had a new Prime Minister. It didn't take long for Keir to pick out his cabinet team either. Angela Rayner is the Deputy Prime Minister, as well as being in charge of housing and communities, and levelling up to be fair, but I refuse to take the term seriously. Rachel Reeves is the new Chancellor. Ed Miliband is in charge of net zero, energy security and getting the bacon baps on. Yvette Cooper is the new Home Secretary. David Lammy is the Foreign Secretary, and Wes Streeting is Health Secretary. Interestingly, James Timpson, the CEO of the repair shop Timpsons, has been appointed as the new Minister for Prisons, Parole and Probation, or PPP. To be fair, this is actually quite an inspired choice. His company has hired over 600 ex-prisoners across the UK. He's previously advised government on business and clearly has a passion for public service. It's a much less fear-inducing team than the previous one, that's for sure. Now, if you want to see a full list of everybody that's been appointed so far, I have put a link in the description, so go and check it out. So, what happens now? Well, firstly, the Labour MPs need to get some kip, then crack on with running the country. Parliament will resume on Tuesday, so they can swear everyone in again and all that kind of bullshit, but they won't be back to normal until the 17th. We can also expect Rachel Reeves to release a budget around mid-September-ish, but apart from that, we just need to pat ourselves on the back and take some time to not think about politics for a bit. No more Rwanda bullshit, national service has gone down the shit pan, and we finally have some small hope of not being treated with open contempt by our government anymore. Let's just take that as a win and have a couple of weeks off. We also have the great news that the Liberal Democrats have gained a massive 71 seats in Parliament, which means they'll have a much stronger influence over Labour's governance than they did the Conservatives. We can count on them to try and pull Labour a little over to the left on certain issues, but we shouldn't be complacent on the basis that there simply isn't a Conservative government anymore. The objective was never to get a Labour majority for the sake of it. The objective is to reverse the damage of austerity, to make things fairer, and to revive our public services. This was a great result, don't get me wrong, but it's a means to an end, not the end itself. Keir Starmer stood on a platform of returning a sense of public service and trust in politics. For what it's worth, I believe him when he says that, but there's a difference between saying and doing. He's shown before that he's capable of changing his mind, and I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but let's all agree to keep our finger on the pulse and call out any bullshit as and when we see it. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please do like and subscribe, it really helps. A huge thank you to my magnificent and attractive supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so from just £1 a month. The link is in the description. Love you. Bye bye.